Welcome to the Thea Lee podcast. It's January 5th, 2026, and we are on day 5 of our Bible readings, and today we step back into the conversation with Abram and the Lord. So God appears to Abram in a vision and tells him, I'm going to reward you and protect you, don't be afraid. The interesting thing is now their relationship must be deepening because now Abram is speaking back. Abram and Sarai have never had a child of their own. Abram is in his 80s, and Sarai has been barren all this time. So Abram gets up the courage to say to the Lord, what good are all of these blessings that you're going to give me? Because I don't have an heir. And if I die today, my servant is going to inherit everything that I own. So God comes back to him and says, no, that's not going to happen. You will have a son of your own that will be your heir. Then he took Abram outside and said, look at the stars, count them. That's how many descendants you will have. And Abram believed him. So God counted Abram as righteous because of his faith at that point. But Abram still says, how do I know that this is actually going to happen? So God tells Abram to get a heifer, a goat, a ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon, because God wants to make a covenant with Abram. So Abram prepares them. He cuts the animals in half, except for the birds. And at that time, when two people were going to make a covenant, they called it cutting the covenant or walking the blood trail. So they would cut the animals in half and lay one half on each side. And the two people would walk up in between the two halves and back. And that cutting of the covenant was sealing the covenant between the two people. So Abram prepared those animals, but as the sun was going down, he fell asleep, and it says there was a terrifying darkness that fell. And then the Lord comes and prophesies to Abram and tells him that one day his descendants would be strangers in a foreign land, and they would actually become slaves for 400 years, but that God would then go and he would punish that nation so that the descendants would leave with great wealth. And 4 generations later, his descendants would come back to this land and they would occupy it. But at that point in time, the Amorites who were living there, their sin was not complete enough to warrant their destruction. So God was looking into the future here. So then Abram looked up and saw that there was a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch that passed between the halves of the carcasses. And the Lord made a covenant with Abraham that day. And he said that he had given this land to his descendants from the border of Egypt to the great Euphrates River. The interesting thing here is that Abram and God did not cut that covenant together. God made that covenant with Abram and his descendants. So now the story moves on to Sarai hearing that Abram was supposed to have a son, and it wasn't happening, right? Abram's in his 80s at this point. And so we have this human condition, this idea that, Eve brought this thing upon women that you desire to control your husbands. So that's what I think of with this story, because Sarai decides that she's going to figure out how to make this happen instead of just waiting and having faith on what God said. So Sarai says, I've been barren. I haven't been able to give you a descendant. So here is my servant Hagar. Why don't we see if you can have a son with her, and then maybe God will fulfill this through him. So Abram agrees, and Hagar gets pregnant. Unfortunately, once she does, then she starts treating Sarai with great contempt. So Sarai is now angry, and she is mad at Abram and says, look what you have done. Now my servant treats me horribly. We will let God show us if I'm right or if you are right. But Abram says, nope, she's your servant. You do what you want with her. This is your problem. And so she starts treating Hagar so badly that Hagar runs away. Now the Lord appears to Hagar at a well, and he pretty much says, what are you doing? What's wrong? Where are you going? And Hagar says that, her mistress was treating her very badly. And so God tells her, go back. Be obedient to your mistress. You're going to have a son, and I'm going to bless him. You need to name him Ishmael, which means God hears, because I have heard you. So God comes and intervenes and is good to Hagar, even though this whole situation obviously is not handled well. So Hagar says that this is the God who sees me, and that well became known as the well of the living one who sees me. So Hagar gave Abram a son, named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. So now we go forward a little while. Abram is now 99 years old, and God appears to him again and tells him, "Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life, and I will make a covenant with you by which I will guarantee to give you countless descendants." So again, God is telling him, I have this covenant with you. You're going to be the father of a multitude of nations, and I am now going to change your name from Abram to Abraham, because you will be the father of many nations. He's going to make him fruitful. His descendants will be many nations, and kings will be among them. So he's confirming his covenant with them, and from generation to generation, it's an everlasting covenant. He says, I will always be the God and the God of your descendants, and I'm going to give you the entire land of Canaan, and you now will live as a foreigner here, but your descendants, it will be their possession forever. So then he says, regarding your wife Sarai, her name will no longer be Sarai, but now she will be Sarah, and I will bless her and give you a son from her. So now God's being a little more specific. Yes, I will bless her richly, and she will be the mother of many nations, and kings will be among her descendants. So Abraham was bowing down now, worshiping God, and he laughed because he was in disbelief of what God had just said. And he was saying, how could I be a father at 100? And how could Sarah have a baby when she's 90? So Abram said to God, may Ishmael live under your special blessing. So Abram is not quite believing here. He's still assuming it's going to come through Ishmael. But God replies, no, it's going to be through Sarah, your wife. She's going to give birth to a son for you, and you're going to name him Isaac. I'm going to confirm my covenant with him and his descendants as an everlasting covenant. He says, but I am going to bless Ishmael, just as he is asked. He's going to make him fruitful also, and he will have many descendants. He will have 12 princes in his bloodlines, and he will make him a great nation. But this covenant, this everlasting covenant, is going to be confirmed with Isaac, who will be born to him and Sarah about this time next year. So also, back in this time when he's talking about the covenant, God tells him that Abraham now has a responsibility to his side of the covenant. And obeying the terms of that covenant means that he and all of his male children and all the men in his household must be circumcised. And any baby boy that is born in his household must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth, so that they have a physical sign of their everlasting covenant with God. So Abraham and his household, he is 99 at this time, and his son is 13, and they are all circumcised to seal this covenant that they have with God. So my takeaway today is that this idea of having a relationship with God and how it protects us and blesses us also needs us to have belief and faith, but obedience. That's what's being shown here by Abraham having to have his whole family circumcised. And then God will still prove to be faithful, even when we do things that are not correct, like the fact that Sarai tried to figure out how to have an heir and not just wait on God. God was still faithful and merciful to all involved. So I hope that you all had a blessed day, and we will talk again tomorrow.